It's your boy, Remoy George Phillip, the first.
And I'm Samantha Zessie Kifler.
This is Masculinity.
The show that investigates the performance of masculinity in the world today, and you know we spell it with a hard K. Well, Remoy.
Yeah, Samantha.
How are you?
Did you just not hear my depleted destroyedness? Oh, Lord, how are you doing?
Same, I think. I'm tired mentally, physically, emotionally, all the leaves. And yeah, so.
The exhaustion is real.
So now going off our last episode.
Yeah, that whole Pew Research Center one.
Yeah, how their latest research showed that Americans were less divided about masculinity, even across political lines, than some political actors made out.
Yeah.
Then how did we get here? How?
I don't. It's a good question. I'm exhausted. I'm not sure. I don't know.
It just all feels like a big ass mess.
One giant, sad, but also infuriating mess, you know?
Oh, yeah. All the feels are real. I am furious. So
You should this Wednesday morning, the amount I literally screamed at the top of my lungs. Woof.
Well, I'm sorry that's what it took, everyone, but we have some Remotions. Oh my God, that was an accident, but it's dope. Remotions again. Oh my God, I'm such
angry. I'm not saying emotions, but yes, very angry emotions I had and have.
Well, let's use that anger and find some answers to why the election results shook out the way they did. And what we can do with it all.
Yeah, I guess I'm here for it, homie.
Yep, right after this short break. Stay tuned.
Curious about next-gen men? We're a small part of a much larger movement to undefine masculinity for a brighter future. Our mission is clear: empower the next generation to use their curiosity, empathy, and courage to build a more equitable world. Join the Next Gen Men community as we learn and unlearn together. We're here to support boys and men to break free from limiting stereotypes. We're not just an organization, we're a catalyst for reimagining masculinity and fostering inclusivity. We're here to help open up possibilities for what men and boys can be. Explore the world of Next Gen Men at nextgenmen.ca and join the community to make a difference. Next Gen Men, shaping tomorrow's leaders one step at a time. Join us and help undefine masculinity and empower the next generation of men to lead with empathy and courage.
Hoy, okay, Samantha.
Yes, Remoy.
All right, how did we get here? We discovered something really interesting in our last episode. My wig was blown back, but yet we're still here.
It was wild, right? I mean, I too was surprised, and it gave me hope after talking to Juliana, from Pew Research Center. And unfortunately, here we are. So, I mean, I don't want to point out the obvious here, but obviously,
Yeah, it's like the giant elephant, or maybe not elephant, just the gender in the room or in our politics or in our culture in America that just can't handle it, right?
I mean, facts. I don't think we can ignore the fact that Kamala Harris was the second Black woman in history to ever run for president. She's only the second woman in recent years to run for president. So it's just really disappointing that America is just lagging in electing a woman leader. I mean, it's working for some European countries, for other countries around the globe, actually. But it just seems like here we simply cannot let go of our ideas of leadership and how it's just trapped in manhood.
Yeah, but I also wonder if there's other things at play, especially when we look at the results of, some of the reporting coming out of the polling booths.
You're talking about the frustration with the economy.
Exactly. That seems to be one of the biggest issues that informed America's choices.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that what you're saying drove the high turnouts of Latinos, especially Latino men, Black men, even women who are pro-choice to vote for Trump?
Yeah, that's what the exit polls have shown in a lot of ways. Individuals, families, people explicitly noted the real financial challenges they're experiencing right now.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, I get it. Okay. I'm working constantly. I'm tired constantly, but I can't stop because I have bills to pay. And I have a student loan, and I just got married. I just want to be cuddled up. You know what I mean?
I don't know about the married part, but yeah, the shit is real out here, dude. Financial struggles are real for everyone.
Dude, it is not easy, Remoy. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I've been broke for a minute and like there's no money coming in with like the few gig economy opportunities that are out there. And then everything like groceries. Like I can barely afford, like it's like $80 for 2 bags of groceries. Like how can I pay to eat?
That's facts. I mean, there are a lot of people online talking about it costs like $50 to step outside, and it honestly actually does.
Jesus, I can relate to this, but I'm still having a hard time making the leap or to trust like the Republican Party. The party has been shown over the decades to lower taxes for the rich and raise them for the poor, to be the ones who are going to make the economy better for those who are struggling and feeling all this pain.
Right. And that's why I've really been trying to understand, like, how much of the information out there is disinformation, misinformation, and like what actually is fact.
Yeah, okay, well, all right. Is like the economy actually that bad, or is what you're saying, is that misinformation?
So that's the thing. It seems like the economy is actually pretty good, according to experts, especially if you compare it to yester times.
Okay, but how?
Well, I guess unemployment is at a record low. There is approximately 1 job for every American, but the issue is that housing costs are super duper high.
Okay, yeah, I did see that. Like rent for everybody, house ownership numbers are through the roof. It's wild.
Yeah. And then the timing coincided, like it just happened to coincide with Joe Biden's presidency. And so he got the blame for it, basically.
Right. And people thinking it was all his fault or the Democratic Party's fault.
Exactly. And in all reality, those positive numbers I just mentioned are actually stabilizing now, which is like, funnily, like just right at the tail end of Biden's term, which is crazy.
Okay, yeah, but what about like inflation? That's the huge one. That's the one everyone is feeling in their grocery stores, right?
Yeah, actually. But inflation is a global thing, right? Like it was global.
What do you mean? I mean, how is that so?
Well, I mean, I think we all remember that little thing called COVID, that, global pandemic that just threw a huge wrench into everything around the world.
Sure, yeah, okay, yeah, definitely, you're right.
That caused everything from supply chain issues to labor shortages to big corporations tightening up their budgets, right? Like we're still feeling so many of these negative financial effects from the global pandemic.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you're right.
And I know this is tough for some people to hear, but there is still global warming. Like climate change is real.
Okay, but how does that affect like prices in dollars and cents?
So with farmers and the whole food supply system still recovering from COVID, basically, like we got that, right? We know that's happening. But also because of increasing temperatures and overall weather volatility, farmers are having a hard time meeting the demands for the food that you're looking for in the produce department.
Okay, and if they can't get enough produce, then prices go up.
Exactly.
Okay, this is making sense. Like, because also like the war in Ukraine, like that also contributes to this, right?
Yep, you're absolutely right. Ukraine's farming industry helps feed people around the world.
Right. So if they're being attacked or in this ongoing war, that's also making their supplies low.
And making prices go up.
Making our dollars less powerful, yeah.
And this is definitely a contributor, right? Like that inflation all of us Americans are talking about and definitely experiencing, it's connected to a much larger global issue, one that takes time and honestly, a lot of moving parts to soften.
So what you're saying is that the Republican Party or like Trump even just simply putting it on Democrats, that's not so easy, right? Like it may not even be true.
Yeah, which is really the crux of this election in so many ways. I mean, misinformation has become the name of the game. Like it's clear, obviously, that I'm a liberal person. I'm not going to pretend to be entirely impartial here, but it's worth mentioning that when it comes to housing, both Trump and Biden expectedly reacted to it in ways that align with their party values.
What are you talking about? How so?
Well, Biden talked to a lot of tenants' rights groups to understand what relief might look like and proposed tax credits for first-time homebuyers, among other things.
Right. So what you're saying is Biden and the Democratic Party were trying to support homeowners and buyers, especially financially.
Yeah. But Trump's solution was to propose building on federal land in places like Nevada so that current homeowners' property values didn't go down, which Biden didn't disagree with.
Okay, that sounds like a solution, but one at the expense of like indigenous peoples and the public lands, which none of us are thrilled about.
Yep. But then Trump's administration also proposed budget cuts to affordable housing.
Oh, wow. Okay, so liberals came up with actual relief programs, and conservatives, or Trump at least, came up with ways to cut federal funding, and in the end, making it harder for people who don't have easy access to funding, made it harder for them to buy an actual home.
Yep. And that actually would increase more unhoused people. So,
oh, Lord. Okay.
right. So, but again, so the game has really become creating narratives that can win votes along party lines rather than getting people real information that can help them make educated decisions.
Right. And then it's like, even if that information is out there, it seems like a lot of Americans, especially not in major cities, they aren't paying attention to the news that may communicate this information, right?
Okay, yeah. But how exactly? Can you break that down?
Look, I'm in Texas right now. I've been with my mom hanging out. And I just know her. She's just like plugged into YouTube all the time. But yeah, okay, that's anecdotal. It's not just her. It's not just that platform. It's actually a lot of individuals are getting information from the things we all always use.
Oh, like what?
Yeah, like Pew Research shows that 54% of American adults get at least some of their news from social media.
Oh boy. The algorithm. Great.
Yeah, and about like a third of Americans do get their news from YouTube and Facebook.
Dang. Just YouTube and Facebook?
Yeah, just those two. And like you think generationally, though, 39% of people under 30 get their news from TikTok alone. And I would only assume that's going to keep increasing.
That's so many people. Like so many people. And then you couple that with how campaign information on candidates and legislation is doled out, like PACs, super PACs, carry committees, all these political action committees, like funneling ads through those very algorithms. And it's really easy to see how folks just get biased information.
Yeah, and it's not even like ads. It's like just people talking, right? Influencers that are paid by these committees.
Right.
And that's like the especially challenging issue, like the algorithms.
Say more.
Yeah, because the companies want you using their apps, right? Like doom scrolling or liking or whatever. So the way they build their algorithms is so the content you see is just more of what you're already looking at.
So basically, it's catering to your existing views and biases.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you start watching a YouTube video that tells you inflation is awful and it's all the Democratic Party's fault, you'll just keep seeing more and more of that information. And
inevitably, that'll lead you to engage with some Trump or Rogan content or some other bro podcast saying similar stuff.
Yeah, it's a crazy whirlpool of self-serving, I don't know, misinformation, like you said.
Yeah, but like a really terrifying, inescapable whirlpool.
Yeah, one that you don't even know you're in or that you should want to be out of it. It's crazy.
Emphasis on you don't even know you're in it. Like, it's so challenging, not to mention extremely manipulative.
Yeah, and this is I'm kind of left with other questions. Like, if people are getting so much information young and old online and off their phones, it's scary. But where does that leave our actual formal education system?
That is a great question, because also there has been a huge effort on the conservative side to deregulate education.
I've heard of this. I know kind of generally speaking, but what does that actually mean or look like?
Yeah, well, okay. So for instance, there's been a concerted effort by the Koch brothers to deregulate yet deeply influence education on many levels for decades.
Look, I've heard of the Koch brothers many times, and they're like this evil multinational company. Is that right?
Yeah, so they made their billions taking over their father's company. They expanded it from oil refineries to energy, chemicals, agriculture, finance, electronics. Apparently, they produce everything under the sun from steak to toilet paper.
Human end-to-end life, baby. Not for the vegans, though. What up? No?
You can bet your ass they produce vegan steak, Remoy. I am 100% sure of it.
They're Kochs and everything. How are they influencing education, though?
In a lot of ways, actually, through a lot of lobbies, organizations, think tanks. They have the Koch Foundation, which funds a bunch of education programs in universities. They've essentially donated a bunch of money to different universities in return for those universities fulfilling their demands. Their influence is so deep that at one point they even had hiring and firing power. They could walk into George Mason University and fire and hire professors.
Feels like that should be illegal.
Well, apparently they said that arrangement had expired during an investigation into whether money had too much influence on education. In 2013, they had spent more than $19 million across 210 colleges and universities across 46 states.
Yeah, but what can we assume their goal in all this is?
Great question. So their goal is actually to produce libertarian-minded future leaders Charles Koch is actually the director of the Mercatus Center at George Mason University, which is basically a research center, which according to its website, quote, champions the merits of dynamic market-oriented approaches to pressing policy problems. So Mercatus research is apparently cited in more and more legislation in Congress. They're all about free market capitalism, and they want future econ leaders to be that as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So they've got their hands in higher education. So universities will produce leaders that think like them. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, basically. Like they pitch and fund courses to ensure that that happens.
I mean, that's shitty, but how are they deregulating education, I guess?
Well, according to a report titled The Koch Network and the Capture of K-12 Education, which is a great title, written by Save Our Schools Arizona, Koch networks and organizations like Yes Every Kid, Americans for Prosperity push for charter schools because they're independent from state school systems and it's easier to align their curricula with the Koch's values.
Okay, when we say charter schools, we mean like schools that aren't public schools?
So they're actually public schools, but they're independently run. Like they have like their own governing board of directors.
Independently meaning like I assume that means like less accountability or something?
Basically, like they have more flexibility than traditional public schools. So essentially they have more flexibility than traditional public schools, which helps to push their values, right? So like those values being market style competition in schools, having CEO style superintendents, and making sure that things like critical race theory and climate change are not taught in schools. Apparently, they also use astroturf methods for that.
I don't know what astroturf means in this context. I know football, I know baseball, but like, what does it mean? No?
Well, this is kind of grimy. So the Koch brothers basically create fake grassroots initiatives that they're funding with their endless bank accounts to make it seem like people are organizing on the grounds against things like critical race theory.
Wow. Okay. So what you're saying is like they're like kind of like creating a picture, painting a picture of people on the ground, gathering together, organizing, which is considered liberal, but it's really the Koch brothers funding it all to get what they want.
Absolutely. Exactly what's happening.
Wow. Okay. So you're saying that they're deregulating schools and using all these initiatives to make sure that they can push conservative values on the students?
Essentially. I mean, they're saying they're really into school choice, right? This notion that parents should be able to choose where their kids learn, what their kids learn in school by choosing the schools they go to instead of relying on the state. Which on the surface kind of sounds good, right? But it comes with way less oversight on what the kids are learning.
What do you mean? What does that look like?
So are you familiar with school vouchers?
Again, another thing I've heard of, but I don't really know what it means.
So school vouchers give parents the freedom to choose a private school or religious school for their kids, using all or part of the public funding that's set aside for their kids' education.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in like a religious school for a lot of my life. And in that school, like a lot of those teachers just didn't have the same statewide certification that public school teachers had. And that was a little bit worrisome.
OMG. Fenny, you should say that. Because like on the surface, it's like, yeah, you should be able to choose where your kid goes to school. But then what happens is there's less oversight by the state over what the kids are learning. And educational standards are eroded. Then the education funds are reallocated to make sure that the parents can choose. But that also means less money for public school education.
Right. And for those kids who don't have access to those other schools.
Basically. Then you've also got this report that one of the Koch's many organizations released, this one being an educational lobby called Yes Every Kid. The Kochs propose various educational reforms, right? One including is the elimination of arbitrary certification requirements, which sort of tells you that anyone can teach the kids as long as the parents are down for it.
Okay, so this is like kind of what I just said, like grew up in like, there was no certification for the teachers and the school could teach whatever it wanted. But in the public school system, that's a little confusing. Like I get that parents should know what their kids are learning, but that doesn't mean there shouldn't be standards on what is being taught and who is doing that teaching, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's why there are standards, right? Like the US did not become the supposedly great innovator country that it is because people weren't educated. Education is literally what put the US ahead Oh, I mean, along with the military, probably.
Yeah, let's not forget that part. But, okay. And colonialism and imperialism, that's fine. Whatever.
All that, just that. And, all of this is not happening in a vacuum, right? Like the Koch brothers are known for bringing together networks of high net worth funders to their super PACs, right? Like hella money. They have PACs supporting political candidates at the local, state, and national level to push their free market anti-climate change vision so that they can create the world they want to see, a world in which Koch industries and folks like them can continue to profit while we get poorer, by the way.
Yeah, and we do more work. It's wildly dystopian, man.
Yeah. I mean, and do you remember Betsy DeVos?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so she was, for those of you who don't remember, she was Trump's Secretary of Education during his last term. She also comes from a billionaire family herself, and she worked with the Kochs during her time in the cabinet. Her family has been donating to Koch organizations for years.
Can't say I'm surprised. Yep.
And she's not the only one, right? Like a bunch of Koch network billionaires and millionaires such as Robert Mercer, Harold Hamm, and many more were Trump donors, and they became or were considered for Trump cabinet positions. So all these people want education deregulated. The Kochs, their friends, they definitely gained a lot from Trump's last presidency, and they stand to gain a whole lot more in this one.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So billionaires were actively working to defund or at least destabilize education. And in some place, it sounds successful, right?
Yeah. So Arizona passed a law in 2023, essentially saying that students are allowed to get vouchers and get their education anywhere. DeVos's foundation, American Federation for Children, and the Koch's organization, Americans for Prosperity, helped pass that bill. And they fought as detractors with a bunch of super PAC ads.
Right. And so all this means these billionaires are using their resources to help pass legislation to destabilize especially the public education system, no matter the cost.
Yeah. They use their cash to get vouchers, or ESAs as they're now called, passed in other states as well since Trump's last time in office.
Yeah, this is crazy. Like now that we're talking about it, like the education, the misinformation, it kind of like takes me at least back to like the root of our like original questions.
Like how we got here?
Yeah, like especially though, like why and how men, and if you think about it, like immigrant men of color who turned out for Trump, like they're falling prey to Trump's rhetoric. I mean, and like it points to like what you talked about in the last episode with Pew, like men generally speaking have plateaued when it comes to higher education, or at least that's the feeling, while women have grown in those sectors. And all of this, especially that rhetoric around education, can be a way to exploit that.
Yeah. And the way to exploit it is literally to make education and those who value education the bad guys.
And like, of course, like women leaders who are educated and God forbid progressive, the like bullseye's just ever expanding, it feels like.
Yep. And it's honestly just like, wow. Like I don't have any other words for it. It's like, wow.
Yeah. Like God forbid Kamala said anything about like climate summits or anything, right?
Yeah. Or even us talking about gender equity.
Right. Yeah. Like we all, education is being manipulated. Like we all become the big bad. That's crazy.
And it's also like the way that they're continuing to do it, because they're literally messing with education policies and practices, making it look like freedom to choose. What is it? School choice. But it's really not that.
Right. But at the same time, they're like creating their own education channels, or maybe it's just like getting away with like creating their own kind of like these misinformation forums.
Yeah, which are super effective, like all these podcasts, Facebook, YouTube, all those places, right? Like, it's like, damn, they're super effective, but they are telling you the wrong information.
Yeah, it's like this total war on education in all these capacities. And it's just like wild, disorienting to consider, man.
Yeah. And honestly, I wonder how our audience feels about this. Like,
yeah, I would. Definitely. What do you guys think? Like, I'm sure you guys got plenty of thoughts, takes, questions, feelings.
Absolutely. Vents, laments.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, we got our own form to get all that out. Like we got that live episode with like Next Gen Men, right?
Yeah. Actually, Next Gen Men is having us on for a live podcast event, which I'm super grateful for, because we really just need an opportunity to talk about this live.
I mean, you need an opportunity to talk about it live. I'm just going to shut my mouth and keep it zipped up, but fine, whatever. We'll be dropping all that info on the website and on the socials, so you can all join.
Yes, please. And also, the Literati Doi obviously will be contributing some wonderful information as well. But the event is free for all NGM Pathway members. What is NGM Pathways? This is a new initiative by Next Gen Men. The full name is Pathways for Engaging Men and Boys in Gender Justice. So it invites anyone who is involved in this movement, who wants to get involved in this movement, to join. And the best part, it is what? Free 99.
Love that price tag. Yeah, and honestly, though, it's a great opportunity to get behind this like dynamic, interesting, engaged community, and it's not behind a paywall, meaning it's accessible for all.
Yeah, which is really like the best. So make sure you sign up at pathwaysformenandboys.ca and come kick it with us, vent with us on November 21st. Put it in your calendar. We cannot wait to see you, to talk with you, to make sense of all this, or try to make sense of all this. I don't know.
I'll just be listening.
Yeah,
Samantha will be doing all the talking, but until that next time, I'm your boy Remoy George Philip the First.
And I'm Samantha Nzesi Kifle. Thank you so much for listening.
Peace.
Ciao.